Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Honestly Nay, and welcome back to this episode of SexuaiTEA. I am joined here today by Domina Franco. Hi, Domina.
Hello.
Tell us about you. Who are you? What do you do? What are you
Oh
into?
my God. I could tell you so many things. My name is Domina Franco. I'm a sex educator, coach, and writer. And a lot of my focus is on sex and disability and chronic illness, but also sex work is a major focus of my studies and my work. And sex positivity and women's empowerment especially. Yeah.
Okay. Sex work. What is sex work?
Oh, sex work is a myriad of things. In the most dry terms, it's it's sex that is transactional, where money is transacted or some sort of something of value. There's so many different types of sex work. There is things like phone sex, and there are things like being a cam girl, or guy, or cam non-binary person, a cam person. There's also obviously porn and escorting service, as well as massage girl. I always say massage girl because anyway, massage person. Happy endings. And then of course there's BDSM forms of sex work for pro doms, etc. But I think something that I particularly focus on a lot of is the legal versus illegal versions of sex work, and why those are that way. And hey, hint, hint, it's patriarchal, white, male control. It's a big secret.
The code word. I want to be like Pee Wee Herman and like run around like you said the secret word.
Oh my God, it's white supremacy and patriarchy. Oh my God, it's symbolic politics. Surprise. Yeah, I could get really steamed up about that. We'll talk about that later. I'll get real steamed up about it. But yeah, I mean, even what is technically sugar babies, although there are, of course, there are gay guys who are also supported by sugar daddies.
Yeah.
And all across the spectrum of everybody of orientations who, get supported that way. And perhaps they don't get money in hand right after a sexual act, but perhaps they get it as an allowance, or a rent is paid, or gifts are bought, or things like that. So that's also a form of sex work, although there's also a lot of it's funny, there's whorephobia and stigma for sex work outside of sex work, of people who don't do sex work towards sex workers. But there's also a whole bunch of stigma and whorephobia within sex work, because between people who do, not full service versus people who do, and then also like sugar babies, and I don't know what the male equivalent is, just sugar boys, maybe.
It's a good name for a band.
Yeah, they're more like, well, we have a relationship, so it's not the same thing. Dominatrix oftentimes don't necessarily like to be, for lack of a better word, lumped in with other sex workers, such as escorts or folks who work in massage parlors or whatnot, because they don't do full service sex work. In other words, they're not actually having sex with their clients. So there's a lot of nuance there. But yeah, that's essentially sex work. Sex where something monetary or something of value is transferred for sex.
So does that kind of fall into like the same realm of like survival sex? If you're having sex for like a place to live or food to eat or a warm place to be for the night?
Yeah, for sure. Survival sex, and again, this totally, like, I feel like sex work is such this strata, it's such this striated thing, because survival sex work, often done by different marginalized groups of people, young folks, LGBTQIA folks, and there's a very different experience between folks who are doing survival sex, especially teenagers who may not have stable home life, etc. The trans community, there's a vast majority of the trans population that are sex workers, and that could definitely be considered survival sex work, because if you read a lot of the literature that's on that, there's limited opportunities to work into other certain areas of their life. And this is a skill set that they may have had actually younger, doing this as survival sex work, and they stay in it. And then there's also, oh my God, there's so much here. So there's I feel like we could be talking for like 8 hours, but there's also the concept that, like, because of stigma, some people don't actually fully say that they're sex workers. Some partially disclose, maybe to just close people in their lives, because of the stigma around it. And people who do survival sex work, they generally, like folks who do more street work than indoor in-call or out-call work, tend to be obviously more marginalized, more endangered, especially because of the police, and just in general because the customers of those sex workers, there's less, what's the best word for it? There's
less insurance, less security.
Yeah, they don't have to be as worried as if they go to a, to a dungeon where people are like, took their name and their phone number.
Yeah.
Or where if they went to, a brothel, or if they went to an in-call location where someone actually took their details. Or if they're even, say, a sex worker that has a madam or a pimp, and there's some sort of accountability to that client. Whereas with people who do survival sex work, or people who are doing street sex work and they don't have some sort of form of protection, they're obviously in a lot more danger, not only from the police who specifically target them, but also from their clients as well. Yeah.
Do you think that the experience of, because in the United States, there are a couple places where sex work is legal. There's things
11
like
counties.
11 counties.
Yeah,
the only one that I can think of is the Cat House or the Bunny Ranch in Vegas. I remember they had a show on Showtime, and that's why I know.
Oh, I think we all do. I remember being much younger than I am now and being very interested in that show. Yeah, there are 11 counties, or last time I checked, that might have changed since. It might be 7 now. But there are very specific counties in Nevada where it is legal. Everywhere else in the U.S., it is illegal. Until 2009, 2010, sex work was legal indoors in Providence, Rhode Island. But then in 2009, 2010, they made that illegal as well. So you couldn't solicit on the street, but you could have clients in call to a location, and that was fine. But that's no longer fine. And now the only legal areas are in Nevada, like you noted. But there's very strict regulation around that. And that sort of actually is kind of a perfect segue into the discussions between legalization of sex work and decriminalization of sex work.
Yeah, because like in Europe, because I went to Amsterdam, and now I have like so many friends. Like I already had friends that were like sex workers and like prostitutes, and now I'm like, yeah, I've got friends all over Amsterdam that they're like, come stay with me, and I'm like, okay, I have to come on a weekend where you're not working.
Right. Where am I staying?
Right? Because your room's this big, so.
Right. Am I staying in the room where you're working? Where
right.
am
I don't want to.
I don't think so. No, not with those big windows. No.
Yeah. And the red lights. I mean, it's sexy, but I don't think I'll get good sleep, you know?
You wouldn't sleep very well in there. Yeah, there's different models. New Zealand actually has a really great model for, the treatment of sex workers. I've studied mainly this, the legalization aspects, decriminalization aspects of sex work here in North America. And then of course there's the Swedish model where the sex, and then in other areas of Europe where the sex workers, they can legally sell sex, but the clients then are considered criminals if they get caught purchasing it. So it's like, it's kind of stupid because you're forcing sex workers out of business anyway, and you're also even potentially making it more dangerous for the sex workers because now that their clients realize that they might face consequences, legal consequences from the purchase of sex, they either try to drive down the prices of the sex workers to just I love that smirk that just came across your face. I love reading micro expressions on people's faces. Because then they'll try to barter down and drive down the prices of the sex worker. They also will ask the sex worker to meet and perform much more dangerous things than they would before because they know that if the sex worker wants to make money, they're going to have to sort of either compromise those values or those limits. And so, it really actually harms the sex worker, even though technically now the sex worker can't get arrested for it. It screws up business, so it really messes with business.
But who cares about like the business of sex workers? That's the patriarchal control of the whole thing.
Oh my God. I work for Italians, so now I've picked up this habit after 2 years of this is from working with Italians. So the thing is, even in Nevada, where it's legal in these particular counties, there's very, very strict rules around how that's done. And the workers can't actually, they have to live within a certain area of the county. Oh yeah, they can't just go live wherever they want to go live.
And then commute.
And then also because of this, and because these communities are so small, so tightly knit, and so known for this, that if a sex worker finds that she has an STI, even if it's one that's perfectly curable and non-transferable, she can be ousted and essentially have her whole life's work blown up, So, and I speak mainly about her because most of the sex work research I've done is femme and female sex workers. This is not to exclude male sex workers or trans sex workers or non-binary folks at all. There's actually so little data on, there's actually a lacking amount of data on male sex workers and trans and non-binary sex workers. And there's also incredible lacking data on the clients. They focus on the research on the sex workers, but they're not focusing it on the other half of the equation, which is interesting.
Can you have your client fill out a survey when they come in?
I know, you're like, actually, can you please? But But yeah, talking about the reason, I mean, in Nevada, okay, sure, it's possible to do it and not get arrested, but your whole life is controlled, your body is controlled. And furthermore, we could get into why, let's consider this question, why porn is legal, why strip clubs are legal, okay? They are mainly, vast majority, male-owned and profited. And there's a huge problem with the fact that for some reason, the government really doesn't like sex workers who are independent or sex workers who are working and making a vast majority of their own profit.
Because how dare a woman profit off of her body? That's not her body.
God, because
those aren't her boobs.
Control the whole goddamn thing. Like, I want to control how you have babies and that you become a baby machine. I want to control freaking everything. They want to control us, everything to do with what's between our legs. And because they're terrified because of how powerful it is.
That's what it is.
Just the damn truth.
That's what it is. Insecurity. Insecurity all around.
Yeah, just the damn truth. Because pussy is power, you know? So yeah, there's this control, but it's funny because some of the forms of sex work where men can make massive amounts of profit, those are legal. The ones where women can maintain a life, or femmes, non-binary folks, can maintain a lifestyle, make money, be able to provide for their families, or their loved ones, somehow that's illegal. So, you know, there's a lot of pluses and minuses, like no. There's a lot of minuses to legalization and a lot of pluses to decriminalization. And a lot of people conflate the two or don't totally understand what those things are. I don't know if you want me to go into that.
Can you hit us with like an elevator speech on what the difference is?
Yeah. So legalization essentially means that it will be legal, but it will be government regulated. And so the sex worker will have to be registered. They'll have to have licensure. They'll have to be tested regularly. They'll have to run along the rules of the law of the land of whatever county, state, or area they're in. Decriminalization, however, is literally just a blanket statement that says it isn't illegal anymore. Run wild, go do it. Now, the problem with legalization is that it will, because of all the costs and the legalities that will be associated with it, it actually will harm sex workers and their businesses. And any sex worker or sex workers' rights advocacy group or person that you run into will tell you that they want decriminalization. They don't want legalization. And it's not because they don't want, and either way, either one of those, a sex worker would be able to go to, if you do want to go to the police, which, you know,
big if.
Maybe not, because hello. But you could actually at least report a violent occurrence, a sexual assault, someone stealing your money or not paying you. You could actually report these things where you can't now because it's illegal. Legalization, though, would really mess with a lot of different sex workers who couldn't afford to get the official licensure through a government, who couldn't afford to work within the regulations that a state would set, which would definitely have overhead costs that some sex workers, especially young sex workers or survival sex workers, could not afford. You know, so it would essentially put them outside of the law anyway and make them susceptible to being arrested. Yeah.
So there's this, thank you for this good elevator speech.
I tried my best to be real quick. Yeah.
So there's this idea, this notion that if you are a female-bodied person or a sex worker in general, that you have this low self-esteem, that you're doing this sex work because you don't care about yourself, you don't respect yourself. But I know at least the sex workers I know are I make money and I'm sexy. Like, what do you mean? So
Yeah.
is there not like a huge empowerment piece that comes in sex work, that comes as a sex worker?
Well, yes and no. So personally, in my experience, yes. But I'm an incredibly privileged person. So it really depends, because sex worker folks who work in a protected environment, such as a brothel, or they're independent and they have hired their own security measures, or a lot of sex workers will just do check-ins with each other to make sure that they stay safe. There is a lot of empowerment in owning your body, in owning your sexuality, and owning your body, and in making money off of it, for sure. But there is also, it's one of those double-edged swords, and there's no particular, like, yes, it's always empowering, or no, it's always degrading, because even a sex worker who could feel empowered one day in one session or one area, the next day may get a client, or maybe the rent's due, and geez, you got to make $400 more, and you got to do a session you don't really want to do. And maybe that one doesn't make you feel empowered. Maybe you feel terrible about it, So maybe you don't really like that client. Maybe that client pushes your boundaries in a way that makes you feel terrible, and therefore reflects badly on your self-esteem, even though you may in general have a healthy level of self-esteem. And then of course there's the concept of covering or partial, or partially telling people in your life that you might be a sex worker, that you are a sex worker. So some people completely cover, and they just simply don't tell anyone that they do this, because of the stigma associated with it. You may personally feel really good about the work, okay about the work. You might love making that money, because trust me, you make way more money doing that than you do working at a Banana Republic, or wherever else, or even at an office job, whatever. And it also allows you to have more free time, because your work pays way more for way less time. But all that being said, because you may have to have a certain level of secrecy around your work because of possible stigmatization from your family, friends, or community, there's always, I think, a push and pull. For sex workers who truly feel like they can be out, and they sort of call their own shots, and they're established, and they have a good client base, yeah, I believe that the level of self-esteem is pretty high there. But at the same time, you will always, as a sex worker, look at your body as a commodity, and therefore you will look at it as, well, just like somebody wants to buy the most beautiful shirt, okay, great, there's a bunch of them on the rack, this one's missing a button, that one's not, right? This one has a tear in the collar, why would you buy that one for the same price that you could buy a perfect shirt for, right? So there's also the idea of the body as a commodity, which is something that, God, we would like to think is not true, but it just is. And unfortunately, sex work is still a consumerist system. And so it's clients consuming the fantasy of whatever this person has decided to, this worker has decided to provide for them for whatever rate. But it's still a consumerist, model. So there's still a lot going on with that too,
Well, it truly is the oldest profession. The oldest profession.
Wait a minute. I don't know if you know this, but this is an amazing fact. I only learned this probably about a year and a half ago.
Oh, snap.
Sex workers are the first people that ever created banks.
Because they needed somewhere to put all
so much money, they had to find a way to organize it and keep it safe.
Wow.
They're the first people that created banks.
Turn up, sex workers. I feel like that is a good place to go ahead because now we all know something new.
That's what I'm saying. I'm glad I could impart something there. But yeah, sex workers are badasses. They're warriors.
Yes.
And they were the first people to create motherfucking banks.
Turn up. Yes, I'm down with it. Domina, where can we find you if we have more questions or we want some more fun facts about sex workers?
Well, my website, www.dominafranco.com, which is DOMINAFRANCO.com. I'm also on Facebook under the same name, and also on Instagram under Domina_Franco.
Awesome. Yeah. So make sure you send all of your sex work, patriarchal bullshit, female empowerment questions to Domina. This is certainly not a conversation that is done. I'm sure we will swing back around and we will see you again. But thank you so much for coming on SexuaiTEA. We have learned so much. I'm so ready to go tell all those bankers out there that the only reason why you have a job is because
sex workers.
Sex workers. Boom.
You know it? Check your history.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me on SexuaiTEA. I am your girl, Honestly Nay, and I'll check you next time.
Thanks, Nay.